Honorable members, I too would like to join in the expression of tributes to the late Mr. Edward George Hart. Mr. Hart's impact on youth development, sport, community empowerment, and public service is indeed unforgettable. At the grassroots level, Hart fundamentally reshaped youth opportunity in Trinidad and Tobago. From his early beginnings in an orphanage in Tacarigua, he channeled lived experiences into action, pioneering juvenile football at a time where structured youth sport development barely existed and flourished in our nation. Starting with just 14 players, among them future national icons, the likes of Russell Atipi, Stern John, David Naked, and Earl Carter, he laid the foundation for a sustainable development pipeline, later expanding into the under 12, under 16, and under 19 divisions, and crucially, formal inclusion of women's football and sporting teams in later years. His unique imprint transformed football from informal recreation into a vehicle for discipline, leadership, and social mobility, producing not only elite athletes, but role models, coaches, and community leaders. Institutionally, Hart's legacy is equally enduring. As a member of parliament for Tunapuna for over 16 years, he combined constituency advocacy with national policy influence across 4 Republican parliaments. His ministerial and state portfolios, spanning health, sport, community development, culture, gender affairs, and tourism, reflect both versatility and trust placed in him to lead. One of his most tangible national contributions was securing the National Hockey Center in Tacarigua, Trin-City, a landmark facility within the Eastern Regional Sporting Complex that elevated Trinidad and Tobago's capacity to host international competition and the development of hockey at various levels. Politically, Hart exemplified service-oriented leadership. His progression from parliamentary secretary to Minister of State across multiple ministries demonstrates a consistent focus on people-centered development, particularly in marginalized communities. He bridged sport and social policy, culture and tourism, gender affairs and community development, recognizing that national progress is interconnected, not siloed. Ultimately, Eddie Hart's impact lies in institution building and human transformation. He converted adversity, being an orphan and abandonment, into love, a testament of what love of self, community, and people can be, can change and shape. His love in his own way, shown through advocacy and personal hardship into public service, and local initiative into national infrastructure. His life story is not simply one of resilience, but a testament that grassroots leadership, when paired with the right structures, drive, and sustained authority, can reshape generations and result in genuine, measurable impact. To his friends and community, they tell you about his good spirit. His family will tell you how he only wanted love around him and in his circle. Mr. Hart was a statesman shrouded in dignity who served his country well. I now take this opportunity to express my deepest condolences to the family of Mr. Hart, and I pray that the Almighty grants him the comfort and strength needed to endure. May we all stand to observe a minute of silence. May his soul rest in peace. Honorable members, I have directed the Clerk of the House to convey our condolences in writing to the family of the late Mr. Edward Eddie Hart George Hart. My apologies.
Bills brought from the Senate, petitions, papers.
Minister of Finance.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, I have the honor to lay the following papers. 1. The National Insurance Contribution Amendment Regulations 2025. 2. The Value-Added Tax Amendment to Schedule 2, Number 3 Order 2025. 3. The Virtual Assets and Virtual Asset Service Providers Forms and Fees Regulations 2025. Paper 12, the report of the Auditor General of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago on the financial statements of the Mayaro Rio Claro Regional Corporation for the year ended September 30th, 2013. Paper 13, the report of the Auditor General of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago on the financial statements of the National Institute of Higher Education, Research, Science and Technology for the year ended December 31st, 2014. Paper 14, the report of the Auditor General of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago on the financial statements of the National Academy for the Performing Arts for the year ended September 30th, 2023. Paper 15, the annual administrative report of the Ministry of Finance for the fiscal year 2023 to 2024. Madam Speaker, I beg to move that papers numbers 12 to 14 be referred to the Public Accounts Committee.
Honorable members, the question is that papers numbers 12 to 14 be referred to the Public Accounts Committee. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any against? The ayes have it. Minister of Homeland Security.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I have the honor to lay the following papers. 5. The Citizenship of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago Amendment Regulation 2025. 6. The Firearms Amendment Regulation 2025. 7. The Immigration Amendment Regulation 2025. And 8. The Immigration Amendment Number 2, Regulation 2025.
Honorable Attorney General.
They're laughing. Madam Deputy Speaker, I have the honor to lay the following papers. The annual report of the Anti-Terrorism Unit for the period October 2024 to September 2025. And 2, the report on the Commission of Inquiry into the failure of CL Financial Limited, Colonial Life Insurance Company, Trinidad Limited, Clico Investment Bank Limited, British American Insurance Company, Trinidad Limited, Caribbean Money Market Brokers Limited, and the Hindu Credit Union Cooperative Society Limited.
Leader of the House.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, I have the honor to lay on the table the following papers as listed on the order paper. In the name of the Ministers of Agriculture and Fisheries, Minister of Transport and Civil Aviation, Minister of Public Administration and Artificial Intelligence, and Minister of Tertiary Education and Skills Training. 4. The Animals Importation Control Amendment Regulations 2025. 9. The Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment to the 9th Schedule, Number 3, Order 2025. 10. The Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment Number 2 Regulations 2025. 11. The Priority Bus Route Special Roads Toll Amendment Regulations 2025. 18. The Annual Report of the Statutory Authorities Service Commission for the year ending December 31st, 2024. 19. The Administrative Report of the Youth Training and Employment Partnership Program, YTEP, for the fiscal year 2022 to 2023. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
And questions?
Member for St. Anne's East.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. To the Minister of Education, as regards the recent rat infestation at the Egypt Village Government Primary School in Point Fortin, when will a pest eradication exercise be carried out?
Minister of Education.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. I thank the honourable member for the question. Madam Deputy Speaker, the Ministry of Education is aware of the infestation at the Egypt Village Government Primary School that has been closed since the 8th of January. The Ministry affirms that it is making every effort to remedy the situation in collaboration with the Point Fortin Borough Corporation. A visit has been made today after baiting, and a decision will be made about sanitization. It is expected, once the appropriate clearances are given, that the school will be reopened by Tuesday, the 20th of January, 2026.
Member for St. Anne's East.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. With regard to the fact that the school has been closed for over a week, I feel very concerned when the Minister stated that a visit was only made today. What other action was taken by the Ministry to be able to clear this rat infestation at the school if a visit was only made today?
Minister of Education.
Madam Deputy Speaker, arrangements were made since the 9th of January for baiting of the school with the Point Fortin Borough Corporation, and sanitization has been taking place during the period of closure. Arrangements have been made by the EFPPD division of the Ministry of Education to monitor the situation. Today is the final visit to ensure whether the school will be reopened by Monday or Tuesday. Given the clearances today and the sanitization that will follow, the final stage of sanitization, it's expected the earliest on Monday, but the expected date is by Tuesday the 20th.
Member for St. Anne's East.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Given the prolonged closure of this school, what arrangements have been made for the students who have been without classes for more than a week based on this rat infestation and the slow pace of remedy?
Member for St. Anne's East, that is not a supplemental question, that is a completely different question. So we move on to the other question. Member for Diego Martin Northeast.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. To the Minister of Transport and Civil Aviation, in light of the tragic accident yesterday, where a member of the public was severely injured on a public transport service corporation bus, can the Minister state what systems have been put in place by PTSE to safeguard the traveling public utilizing its services?
Minister of Transport and Civil Aviation.
Speaker.
The Public Transport Service Corporation, PTSE, wishes to reaffirm its commitment to passenger safety and accountability following a recent incident involving a PTSE bus and a passenger. The corporation continues to implement its driver recertification program, which is designed to reinforce safe driving practices, operational standards, and adherence to established protocols. In addition, the PTSE utilizes its internal investigation processes to thoroughly review incidents, with findings used to inform future operational decisions and strengthen preventative measures. Where investigations identify breaches of policy or standards, appropriate action is taken to ensure drivers are held accountable. The corporation also maintains a strong focus on preventative measures, including continuous training, supervision, and monitoring. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Member for Diego Martin, Northeast.
Supplemental. Specifically, what is the PTSE doing to assist the injured person?
Minister of Transport and Civil Aviation.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the corporation is in contact with the passenger's family. The passenger is currently receiving medical attention.
Member for Diego Martin, Northeast.
Does the PTSE intend to compensate the victim?
Doesn't qualify, member for Diego Martin, Northeast. That is a different question from the initial one.
Question unnoted. Questions for oral answer.
Leader of the House.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, the government is prepared to answer all questions on the order paper.
Member for Remo.
Thank you kindly, Madam Deputy Speaker. To the Minister of Works and Infrastructure, can the Minister indicate when the... Oh, okay, sure.
Question number.
Okay, great, thanks.
Member for Remo, you need to say which question number.
12.
That last really blue.
Minister of Works and Infrastructure.
Honourable Deputy Speaker, the Ministry of Works notes that the Pinto Road is approximately 3.2 kilometers and runs from the Eastern Main Road to the Churchill-Roosevelt Highway, and I'm told it's under the jurisdiction of the Arima Borough Corporation.
What? She didn't know that? She didn't know that neither.
Member for Remo.
Thank you kindly. Honourable Minister, I would just ask you kindly to check on this matter. I will ask the question. I will ask the question. Honourable Minister, have you checked with the Tunapuna Corporation as it relates to this matter, where this particular road falls as distinct from the corporation?
She don't know that.
Minister of Works and Infrastructure.
Notwithstanding the road falls where it falls, whether it's a remote Tunapuna, the government of the United National Congress operates unlike the previous government.
Absolutely.
And the program for upgrading road efficiency has placed it on their schedules, and they have told me, funds providing, we will deal with it during this fiscal internally. That's the other thing, if we could deal with it internally, because you know they have destroyed everything. Right? But we'll try our best.
Aruka Lupino.
Very much, Madam Deputy Speaker, to the Minister of Works and Infrastructure. Minister, based on your response a short while ago that it is the pure program that is responsible for the repair of the program, for the road. Can you allow me to, can I be allowed to ask the question, Madam Deputy Speaker? Can I be allowed to ask the question?
Member, can you ask the question, please? Let's ask the question.
Speaker. Minister, are you saying that despite the fact that the road falls under the regional corporation, that the pure program, which is under the Ministry of Works and Infrastructure, will be responsible for the rehabilitation of that road?
Minister of Works and Infrastructure.
Is that a question? Oh. I have said that unlike the previous government, the United National Congress is a government for all. And therefore, the Ministry of Works and Infrastructure is trying to treat with this road during this fiscal year.
Member for Remo. Next question.
Question number 13 to the Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Chair. Madam Deputy Chair, Speaker, sorry. The Youth Agricultural Homestead Program, YAP, commenced in June 2022 under the Ministry of Youth Development and National Service, which was led by the former Minister Foster Cummings. A program which was touted as a platform for youth development became a symbol of PNM's systematic failure and fiscal irresponsibility. From the start of this program since June 2022, one cohort of graduates of 159 persons have graduated. Another cohort is currently awaiting graduation. Madam Deputy Speaker, the LSA was used as the executing authority for this project, and as of the 17th of November 2025, the total commitment on projects awarded by the LSA to undertake works at that program amounted to $161 million. The LSA requested payments amounting to $70 million, but has received $37 million, leaving a balance of $33 million in outstanding bills. And Madam Deputy Speaker, after 4 years and spending $70 million, I am told they only built 8 starter homes. I am also told, Madam Deputy Speaker, the approximate cost to complete the projects will be $86 million. And more bills keep coming up, Madam Deputy Speaker, which might take us up to a figure of $182 million. In fact, one contractor who received a contract of about $8.6 million was the same contractor that bought the personal vehicle of the former Prime Minister, received a contract of $8.6 million, and that site that contractor was responsible for is only about 60% completed. Madam Deputy Speaker, I am told that license to occupy was signed by unauthorized individuals allowing persons to occupy lands. Based on all of these issues, Madam Deputy Speaker, I am informed that the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries has now requested an audit into this particular project, Madam Speaker. And if the member for Ariba wants more information on this, Madam Speaker, I will give her, but she can also ask Foster Cummings. I thank you very much.
Member for Remo.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Can I ask the Honourable Minister, when is the audit expected to start and complete?
Minister of Land and Legal Affairs.
Madam Deputy Speaker, as politicians, we have no part to play in the audit. However, as soon as that audit is prepared, Madam Speaker, we will inform ARIMA of the findings of that audit. Thank you very much.
Next question, member for Malabar Mausaka.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Question number 16 to the Minister of Tertiary Education and Skills Training.
Minister of Tertiary Education and Skills Training.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the Ministry of Tertiary Education and Skills Training has reviewed the data held by the On-the-Job Training Program Division on this matter, and the data has indicated that over the period May 2025 to present, 520 OJT trainers were employed in the different sectors in Trinidad and Tobago. 323 in the public sector, 180 in schools, 11 in private sector, and 6 were assigned to non-governmental organizations. Thank you.
Next question, member for Aruka Lopino.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, question number 30 to the Minister of Public Utilities.
Minister of Public Utilities.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, this government, led by the member for Siparia, does not operate by spite and malice, especially when it comes to water. Unlike what occurred when my friend served as the Minister of Public Utilities. Madam Deputy Speaker, this government remains committed to improving water supply for citizens across Trinidad and Tobago. Accordingly, the project for the drilling and outfitting of Aruka Well number 13, which commenced on April 8, 2025, has been prioritized for continued implementation. Upon completion, the production well is expected to yield up to 200,000 imperial gallons per day, enhancing the water supply for more than 2,200 residents in 5 Rivers, Golden Grove, and Bonnet Gardens. To date, civil works, well drilling, well development, and pump testing have been completed. The construction of the control room and electrical installations are currently underway. Once completed, the control room will be equipped and integrated with all required mechanical and electrical instrumentation for operationalization. Connection of the associated pipelines to the completed Aruka well will therefore follow. Madam Deputy Speaker, there have been some delays with respect to civil works due to the heavy torrential rains over the last couple months, but the project is still progressing and should be completed by early 2026. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Member for Aruka Lopino.
Madam Deputy Speaker. Minister, in response to your question in relation to your response, the Aruka Well program is not part of the Aruka Water Improvement Program. There are a number of projects that are associated with the laying of pipelines in the Windy Hill, La Florissant, and Borneo West areas. And the question, therefore, is, my colleague from Couva South, is what is the status of these projects? Because the response that you give, that well is not part of the Aruka Improvement Program.
Minister of Public Utilities.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, I think English language is very difficult for my colleague for Aruka Lopino. When we spoke about the well, we spoke about an integrated approach. And I was very happy to hear my colleague who served as Minister of Public Utilities speak about Windy Hill and other parts of Aruka Lopino that did not see him or water for the last 5 years. So there is an integrated approach through the Aruka well. Had he listened better, Madam Deputy Speaker, he would have understood how those projects are being integrated, but we give the assurance that it will be done and completed by the first quarter of 2026. That is performance and that is delivery, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Member for Aruka Lopino.
Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, to the Minister of Public Utilities. Minister, based on your response, are you aware that contracts have already been issued since last year, February, with respect to the commissioning of pipelines in relation to this program? I'm asking, what is the status of these programs, these projects?
Member of Public Utilities, Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, unlike my colleagues opposite, I am not concerned about contractors and contracts. We are just interested about getting the job done, and as I've indicated before, it will be completed by the first quarter of 2026.
Question number 31, by the member for St. Anne's East.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Question number 31 to the Minister of Education.
John?
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I thank the honourable member for the question. Since April 2023, a total of 9 projects were conducted at Sawa North Secondary School, as the safety and comfort of students and staff on the compound are of utmost importance. 2 of these projects are still ongoing and fall under 1, the July-August 2024 Critical Repair Program Phase 2, and the second falls under the 2023 program, 27 Critical Projects 2023 program. To address part A of the question, the scope of the project. With respect to the scope of the ongoing project, first, the July-August 2024 Critical Repair Program Phase 2. This includes roof and ceiling works to Block A, C, and O, to demolish the wooden ceiling and install suspended ceilings, and conduct all necessary repairs to the roofs of each block, inclusive of ridge cap replacement and guttering installation where required. Part 2, termite treatment to be executed throughout the entire school, inclusive of, but not limited to, all wooden doors, chairs, and cupboards. Part 3, sewer works and associated electrical works. Sewers to be pumped out, dislodged, and properly disposed of at an improved location. Cleaning and sanitization of all affected areas are to be completed subsequently. Repairs to the electrical components of the sewer treatment plant to remove, supply, and install transformers, distribution panels, and all other required materials. Part 4, electrical and associated works to blocks A, M, N, and O, to supply and install sub-distribution panels, sub-breakers, interconnection cables, various outlets and isolators, dawn-to-dusk perimeter lighting fixtures, vapor-proof lighting, and switches with weatherproof cans, etc. The second project, 2023, the scope of works. Critical Projects 2023 program. Part 1, roof works, guttering for male, washroom, pigeon-proofing, sanitization, cupboard joinery, electrical extension of covered area gate, car parks, signage, windows. Part 2, painting. Madam Deputy Speaker, with respect to Part B of the question, the completed works. Starting with the first project, the July-August 2024 Critical Repairs Program Phase 2. The roof works and termite treatment were completed in September 2025. With respect to the second project, that was started in 2023, the 27 Critical Projects Program. The painting works, roof works, guttering for the male washroom, sanitization, cupboard joinery, electrical works, extension of the covered area at the gate, car park signage, and works to windows were completed in September 2025. With respect to Part C of the question, work yet to be completed. For the first project, July-August 2024 Critical Repairs Program Phase 2, the ceiling works were 70% complete and electrical works are 75% complete. Sewer works have not yet commenced, as they are scheduled to begin upon completion of the electrical works. For the second project started in 2023, the 27 Critical Projects Program, minor works to satisfactorily complete the pigeon-proofing are yet to be completed. Part D of the question, expected date of completion of all works. Madam Deputy Speaker, respect to expected completion dates as follows. For the first project, July-August 2024 Critical Repairs Program, MTS has advised an estimated completion date of 28 February 2026. And for the second project, the 27 critical projects started in 2023, 20 of the projects have been completed, and MTS anticipates that the remaining 7 projects will be completed at the end of July 2026. I thank you.
Question 32 by the member for St. Anne's East.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, question number 32 to the Minister of Education.
Minister of Education.
Good. Madam Deputy Speaker, I thank the honourable member for the question. Madam Deputy Speaker, for the 2025 cycle, the eligibility criteria for the school supplies and book grant continue to prioritize families requiring financial assistance. A grant of $1,000 was applicable to students attending public primary, secondary, and special schools. Applicants were required to fall within at least one of the following categories. 1, families in receipt of public assistance. 2, unemployed parents or guardians. 3, students with disabilities. 4, households earning $7,499 or less per month. Thank you.
Question number 33 by the member for Diego Martin Central.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Question number 33 to the Minister of Rural Development and Local Government.
Minister of Rural Development and Local Government.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the government wants to know what is the criteria to terminate and hire monthly paid workers. The opposition? Sorry. Diego Martin Central wants to know what is the criteria to terminate and to hire and rehire monthly paid workers. First of all, some of this is based on a false and misleading premise, and I think the member ought to know better. The URP is a program designed to provide temporary employment to unemployed persons while enhancing their skills and so on, and of course providing improvement within the community. When we assumed office, we recognized that, in fact, before we went into office, people know that the URP was rampant with corruption under the last government. When we assumed office, we appointed a program manager, Mr. Firoz Khan, who has been doing a phenomenal job, I must say. When we went in, what we met was widespread absenteeism, workers turning up at the end of the month to sign a register to collect pay, workers that members on the other side selves are now advocating for, knowing that they were doing these wrong things. We found a lot of nepotism, cronyism, corruption, fraud, condoned by members on the other side. Madam Deputy Speaker, under the last government, the unemployment relief program lost its moorings completely. This government has taken a decision to root out corruption, to save taxpayers' dollars, to provide real employment to real people, not ghosts, and to redirect funds so that people will get a decent wage. What the last administration did was give people breadcrumbs while they run away with the whole bakery and then come out here agitating people to say the UNC take away your breadcrumbs. Tell them how the bakery you went home with. Madam Deputy Speaker, as such, this government take the decision that staff that are not essential to the wrap-up of the URP are no longer required. We hired a team of 8 persons who have previous managerial experience within the program, who have background in law enforcement, because there are a lot of police matters being referred to the police from the URP. We have persons with expertise in business management and project management competencies, who were engaged 8 persons to wind up the URP and to implement a new strategic direction. There has been no hiring of terminated monthly paid employees, and there will be no hiring or rehiring of the ghosts that were condoned under the former government. Thank you.
Question 34 by the member for St. Anne's East.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, question number 34 to the Minister of Education.
Minister of Education.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. I thank the member for the question. With respect to the Maracas Bay ECC Centre, Madam Deputy Speaker, in answer to Part A, the status of its construction. The project is currently in the pre-contract phase. The design drawings and bill of quantities were completed and approved by the Ministry of Education. With respect to Part B of the question, the expected timeline for completion and commissioning of the facility. The construction phase of this project is expected to take approximately 12 months, inclusive of design development and statutory approvals. With respect to Part C of the question, the expected date of completion of the project. No expected date of completion can be provided at this time, as the works have not yet commenced. The Ministry of Education is currently reviewing its infrastructure construction projects, and this school will be considered as part of this process. Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker.
Question number 35 by the member for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West.
Thank you very much, Ms. Deputy Speaker. Ms. Deputy Speaker, question number 35 to the Minister of Energy and Energy Industries.
Minister of Energy and Energy Industries.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. In response to question number 35, during the past 5 years, the National Gas Company declared for the first time 2 losses at the end of financial years. In 2023, the magnitude of the loss was $1.3 billion. This required NGC to examine carefully its non-revenue generating related expenditure. Madam Deputy Speaker, over the past 5 years, NGC spent in excess of $10.2 million on steel pan expenditure and $258,397 on TASA expenditure. Yes, let me get that clear. $10.2 million on steel pan expenditure and $258,000 on TASA expenditure. Madam Deputy Speaker, both were discontinued. It was the last hand of that TASA. NGC continues to review all sponsorship in the future based upon the current revenue of the company. Thank you.
Member for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, NGC, having declared over $1.6 billion in profit after tax in the last fiscal, is the cancellation of sponsorship to these 3 steel band groups part of the government's wider attack on the steel band movement, as we've seen with the cancellation of Heritage as well?
Madam Deputy Speaker, if the member had been following the news, he would have been in possession of the facts as released by the member for Moruga Tableland on the outstanding sponsorship of the steel band over the past 2 weeks. Madam Speaker, let me repeat my repetition that NGC will continue to engage in considering sponsorship as we proceed based upon the revenue of the company.
Member for Port of Spain North.
Madam Deputy Speaker, so is there a commitment by the government, because they've been draining billions in dividends, to sponsor the steel ban movement through the NGC?
Minister of Energy.
Deputy Speaker, I don't intend to spend the entire day saying the same thing here. Thank you.
Question 36 by the member of Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West.
Madam Deputy Speaker, quite timely. Question number 36 to the Minister of Energy and Energy Industries.
Minister of Energy and Energy Industries.
I take a sip of water for this one. Take a sip of water for this one. Madam Deputy Speaker, question number 36 in response. The Ministry of Energy and Energy Industries has received no notification from Woodside Energy concerning any closure of operations in Trinidad and Tobago. In July 2025, Woodside Energy sold its interests in Blocks 2C and 3A to Perenco, and the Ministry was officially informed of the completion of this transaction by letter dated July 18, 2025. Madam Deputy Speaker, today I want to put on record that the former Minister of Energy is well aware of this development. I have in my hand not one but two letters. A public announcement by Woodside Energy dated Friday, 28 March 2025, in which Woodside indicated in March 2025, before April, March, Woodside to divest Greater Angostura assets to Perenco. That was announced. I have in my possession a letter dated from Woodside Energy, 3rd April 2025. 3rd April 2025, when they were busy talking rubbish. 3rd April 2025 to the Ministry of Energy, in which Woodside indicated in detail their intention to divest the assets at Angostura. And more than that, went on to call on the minister at the time, the member for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West, asked the very minister, indicated in detail their intentions, and asked for his formal consent to the same. He was well aware of all the plans and intentions of Woodside. And today, the hypocrisy of coming to the parliament and the country to pretend, when did this happen? How did it happen? Why did it happen? Where did it happen? That's an Indian song, by the way. To pretend that he doesn't know, and the labor force moved from 100 to 1. Madam Speaker, it is on the record that those persons, they just change their jersey in football in terms from Manchester United to Manchester City. They continue to play football. They move from Woodside to Perenco. A few of them who were expats went to different parts of the world and so on. There was no fallout of employment, that the employment dropped from 100 to 1. And the members well aware of all these developments by letters from Woodside Energy. So I want to point out that for the record, it is gross hypocrisy on this matter. Madam Speaker, before listening to some more rubbish, let me indicate it is important to note that Woodside Energy maintains its operating interests in Blocks 23A and Trinidad and Tobago Deep Atlantic Area, TDDA 14, which forms the Calypso Deepwater Project, and they continue to engage with the Ministry on this project. We are at a stage now of discussing and finalizing some technical and commercial matters, including development concepts between the partners involved in this. So that is a continuing effort. So I would like to condemn the mischief and hypocrisy before us.
Member for Port of Spain North.
Thank you very much, Madam Deputy Speaker. After the theatrics, all that is concluded is the absolute ignorance and incompetence of the member for Old
Can you ask a question, please?
When did the government announce to Trinidad and Tobago that Woodside closed its operations in Trinidad and Tobago, have no office. They have no office in Trinidad and Tobago, and they have one employee in Trinidad and Tobago that is not associated with divestment to Perenco. When did the government announce this?
Minister of Energy.
Madam Speaker, but this is part of the, Madam Deputy Speaker, this is part of the shameless condition that the member is in. But the Woodside Energy announced to the public and to the world on Friday, 28 March 2025, of their intentions, of their plans. The new government of the UNC didn't have to announce anything. Woodside announced. Woodside told the former minister in 3rd of April, when did you announce? When did you announce that Woodside was divesting its assets? When did you announce? They never, Woodside never told me that, they told him. So when did he announce?
Member for Port of Spain North.
For the education, Madam Deputy Speaker, of the member and the population, a divestment the question, if I may be permitted, is when did the government announce a closure as opposed to a divestment of assets? Produce the letters. A letter to the permanent secretary is not a letter to the world.
Minister.
No, these energy companies, they direct their letters to the permanent secretary for attention to minister. They asked him for consent, and he did not tell the country anything because he was ashamed before the general elections to announce that Woodside was divesting their assets.
Port of Spain North.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the question to the Minister. You are allowed four. I know you're illiterate.
Okay,
but
members.
28-5.
Yes. Yes, my arrow. Port. We have 4 supplemental questions. Please ask one question, member.
The letters that he has Would the member produce the letters addressed to the Minister of Energy to which he has referred and take ownership of his statement that it was to the Minister of Energy?
Minister indicating that letters addressed to the ministry for the attention of the permanent secretary involving the minister's consent was not brought to his attention?
Exactly.
Is he saying he was unaware? Is he saying he was ignorant? Is he saying he was incompetent to these issues? That a major issue like this did not come to his attention? Could the minister state whether he was so apart from it all that he had not a clue of what was happening in the energy sector? Is that his position?
Prime Minister.
Question number 37, member for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West.
Much. Question number 37 to the Minister of Energy and Energy Industries. Tell us about Mahmood.
Minister of Energy.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you so much, member for Port of Spain North, St. Anne's West, for the question. Huh? Whether is Imamu is ANV? I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything about it. Madam Deputy Speaker, let me return to this matter. Madam Deputy, yeah, because if they were there, people would have to watch snow on TV. Madam Deputy Speaker, number 37, could I return to the question? Thank you. In response to number 37, Madam Speaker. The National Gas Company of Trinidad and Tobago is bound by the terms of an arbitration agreement governing the dispute related to the Beetham wastewater plant construction. This agreement stipulates inter alia that all pleadings, documents, and written evidence submitted or produced in the arbitration, as well as the contents of any award published therein, shall remain confidential in perpetuity. Accordingly, Madam Deputy Speaker, the NGC is legally precluded from disclosing any information pertaining to the arbitration proceedings, including the outcome, findings, or any financial determinations made by the arbitrator. Thank you.
Thank you, Member. The time for questions. Sure. Member for Ruka Lupino.
Thank you very much. Madam Deputy Speaker, may I draw your attention to Standing Order 2910 with respect to the unanswered questions on the order of people.
Are there any supplemental questions for number 37?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, would the member for Urupuch East please indicate whether in the public's interest, NGC is prepared to make a request, as they are entitled to, that the award be published for the population's edification?
Minister of Energy.
Madam Deputy Speaker, I will not repeat the answer I gave, but the member is free to file any other question on this or any other matter.
Members, in accordance with Standing Order 2910, question number 38 will be treated with accordingly.
Statements by ministers.
Honorable Prime Minister. The Leader of the House.
Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Madam Deputy Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 126, and with your leave, there has been agreement to allow both the Honourable Prime Minister and the Honourable Attorney General to speak until the conclusion of their statements.
Honourable members, I am informed that there has been an agreement between the Leader of the House and the Chief Whip to allow the Prime Minister and the Attorney General to speak until the conclusion of their statements. The Honourable Prime Minister.
Thank you very much. Thank you, members. Thank you, Madam Deputy Speaker. Thank you, members. I think members are very excited to return to the chamber as we begin the parliamentary sittings in this new year. If you just give me one moment, I'll get into the substance of the statement, but just to wish everyone a very blessed, very prosperous year 2026. The members of the parliamentary staff and all those affiliated working with us, members on the other side, all members on this side, and of course the nation as a whole, a very blessed, prosperous 2026. Madam Deputy Speaker, I don't know if the blue wash in Tobago caused the member of Port of Spain, North, St. Anne's West to repeat himself, to become very agitated. But if I were them, that blue wash was a real washout. So we're looking now for the blue wave, the MV blue wave landing in Tobago, as we thank the people of Tobago and respect the wishes of the people of Tobago. What I would like to do now, Madam Deputy Speaker, is spend a few moments on the parliamentary's legislative agenda, my government's legislative agenda as we start 2026. Our agenda is and always has been for any parliament the means by which the executive, the government, translates policy into law. And to be more specific, it is evidence of the fulfillment of campaign promises to the people of our nation. Our commitments, Madam Deputy Speaker, originated in our manifesto. And that manifesto by Cabinet Committee number 330, second session, dated July 10, 2025, was officially adopted as government's policy. Our agenda has been carefully developed to guide the legislative workflow necessary to achieve several of our objectives across the ministries. And we have now established several pieces of legislation to be shared today. To make sure the Honourable Attorney General, together with the ministers, had some activity and consultations, and they were tasked with submitting detailed policies to inform drafting of necessary legislation. That broad consultative process has been instrumental in transforming our promises into tangible legislative proposals, reflecting the collective input and expertise from across the government. I want to clarify, Madam, especially for the benefit of the viewing public, I did say that several of our commitments are represented herein. This is because some cannot be here, because not all our promises, not all our policy directions would require legislative action. And so we have fulfilled many of those promises here, legislatively, and of course outside of the Parliament. We have brought all necessary legislation before Parliament. To do that in 1 year is not feasible. So if we are serious about getting the job done, then we have to prioritize. And this is what this agenda will help us to do, and to share with the national community the prioritizing. But let me just remind us that over the last about 7 months, we have already brought 13 pieces of legislation to this Parliament. 13 pieces of legislation to Parliament, and today another 3 will shortly be debated. So these include what is now Act number 2 of 2025, the Children's Life Fund Amendment Act, Act number 3 of 2025, the TTRA Repeal Act 25, Act number 4 of 2025, the Prime Minister's Pension Amendment Act 25, Act number 5 of 2025, the Finance Supplementary Appropriation Financial Year 25 Act, Act number 6 of 2025, the Constitution Amendment Act 2025, Act number 6, item number 6, Act number 10 of 2025, and that was the Administration of Justice Indictable Proceedings, better known as the AJIPA Act. Then we had Act number 11 of 2025, the Home Invasion, Self-Defense, Defense of Property Act 2025. Then Act number 12 of 25, Virtual Assets and Virtual Asset Service Providers Act. Act number 13 of 2025, Summary Offences Act. Act number 14 of 2025, the Finance Act. And these, amongst others, thus far, keeping promises we made, being promises delivered in this legislature. Today we move to 3 pieces more. So from the 13, these 3 after today would be hopefully passed in this Honourable House. And those 3 include the Motor Vehicles and Road Traffic Amendment Bill 2026, the Law Reform Zones of Special Operations, Special Security and Community Development Measures Bill 26, and the Tobago House of Assembly Amendment Bill 2026 to be debated today. So these, I'm saying, are already delivered, and those to come. But let me share with you now some of our proposals in the coming months. We will continue to meet our promises through our legislative agenda here and in the other place. We have promised greater autonomy to the people of Tobago. And today is a first step in that direction as we bring the THA Amendment Bill to this House. We want to congratulate the people of Tobago on making their total and outright rejection of the PNM PNUSA declare. We congratulate Chief Secretary Farley Augustine and his party and his team for their landslide victory in Tobago. And of course, his swearing-in yesterday, which we were very honored to attend. We say to our sisters and brothers in Tobago, We shall complete that which has gathered dust for the past 10 years. My government is committed to enacting legislation to entrench the position of Tobago as an equal autonomous partner of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago. To that end, we shall move expeditiously to analyze the provisions of legislation drafted previously and in consultation with the Honourable Chief Secretary of the Tobago House of Assembly, we'll move to draft an efficient law which clearly establishes Tobago's place in the sun as an equal partner in the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, side by side, side by side. We will work with the THA and their teams to bring to this Parliament, after consultations, the Constitution Amendment Bill 2026 and the Tobago Self-Government Bill 2026 to this Parliament in this fiscal year. We will bring those. In the coming months, we will act to make critical reforms to the judiciary to establish a chancellor, the office of chancellor for the judiciary. We will also introduce measures to address the delivery of justice on the criminal side, to speed up justice, to protect victims' rights with special attention, legislation to help us have speedy trials, reform plea bargaining legislation, and treat with expunging criminal records where so deemed necessary. The JIPA Act, which I mentioned before, will be further amended to deal with operational deficiencies which result in delays in the administration of justice. We also will bring amendments to the structure of the courts to create a civil division. Madam Speaker, Deputy Speaker, the safety and security of our citizens has been and continues to be of paramount importance to my government. From day one, we have acted forcefully and decisively to frontally attack criminal organizations and entities in our country that have brought bloodshed, death, terror, and loss to our citizens' doorsteps. Yes, we declared a state of emergency in July to deal with threats to the state and state actors coming from gang leaders within the prison system. The SOE, as we know, was extended twice by this House, and as it comes to an end on January 31, we have brought to this House today, as part of our legislative agenda, a piece of legislation that will help us to pick up where the SOE ends. So we do not intend to extend that SOE beyond January 31. Instead, we will come, as we are doing later today, with the Special Zones Act. But let us not diss the SOE. By midnight, December last year, our national murder rate was brought down by 42%. That is the largest decline in our nation's history and one of the most significant drops globally in 2025. Through the relentless work of the Commissioner of Police, the TTPS, the CDS, and the Defence Force, and of course our ministers and MPs, our nation has seen a drastic decline in serious crime across the board. This means lives have been spared, citizens are beginning to feel safer in their homes, workplaces, and schools. I remember when we came, Madam Deputy Speaker, say we were going to put police officers in the schools. There were all these anonymous people, and that happens. People come out and they print things in the media and they say anonymous sources. When you ask who is this anonymous person, you can't get a name. So there were anonymous persons, but I want to you remember when they said we don't want the police in the schools. You know what's happening now? The schools are begging to have the policemen in the schools. And so, Homeland Security and the other agencies and education, we will work together to further roll out placing police in schools based on the data that we have to ensure the utmost safety for teachers and students in schools. Building on that foundation, we passed what we call the Standing Ground Law, the Home Invasion Law, here in this Parliament last year. And today we are bringing new legislation to bolster government's efforts in our fight against crime and threats to national security. We are committed to returning safety to our country. We will lock in some of the benefits derived from the SOE to continue to treat with gang-related homicides, violence, and criminal activity, as we propose to enact, based on the Jamaican model, zones of special operations, laws similar to which obtains in other jurisdictions. I saw Honorary Chief from the research, Hong Kong, I think Nigeria, several countries, but right here in our own Commonwealth jurisdiction, we have the model in Jamaica. And I must commend and thank the Honorable Prime Minister of Jamaica, Dr. Holness. We had spoken personally, and I asked for him to share with us what they were doing with the special zones. And our Minister of Homeland Security visited Jamaica, in fact, and spent time there with their constabulary, their police force, their equivalent of TTPS, and they shared that model which the Honorable AG, Minister of Justice, Minister of Land and Legal Affairs, they've worked together to bring this model, which we'll be debating later. So we remain focused as a priority on safety and security. We remain focused against trafficking, against transnational organized crime. And today I make no apology for standing side by side with our oldest trading partner, the leader of the free world in this hemisphere. I make no apology today, and I'm happy that we did that. I'm happy. And if you had some good lawyers on your side, we have some very good ones here, including the Honorable Attorney General, they will tell you there was no international law that was breached when we were taking out, people were being taken out in their boats, trafficking, human trafficking, drugs, children. That is what we were doing, transnational crime. That is what we were fighting, and we make no apology today. So find a good lawyer, because we have the legal opinions on this matter, and again, we make no apology for it. In any event, I remember right here in this Parliament, I was sitting across there, and a member on this side said, what Trump go do we? What Trump go do we? Well, we now finding out what Trump did us, and what they could do. They're finding out. Very disrespectful. The leader then...
That member should look out for Trump now.
Which proof? Where's your proof? By the way, member for... welcome back to the Parliament, madam. Welcome back to the Parliament. We are happy to have you here to debate with you. So what Trump going to do? Trump did us nothing. Trump did us nothing, but maybe he has some other people he has to deal with. They will find out what Trump will do then. Find out. So we want to really deal with crime, deal with safety and security. Rowley? You said they come for Rowley? Who he? Interpol? Is he former? Rowley? Interpol? I'm not sure I'm hearing right. If the member is saying that they're coming for Rowley. We'll wait to see. I am not sure.
We didn't say it.
We didn't say it. The member is saying it. So, look, we will bring further amendments to this House to deal with hazards, nuisance, noise pollution, and so on, created by the lack of regulation. We brought in the fireworks legislation here with the noise and whatever. We'll have to tweak it. We did it just before the Christmas. Of course, there will be more to do to further put those regulations into place. And I was reading people talk about noiseless fireworks. I'm being told by some there's nothing called really such as noiseless fireworks, Madam Deputy Speaker. So it's something we'll continue to work on. Then we dealt with the issue of the noise pollution as well. People are adamant that we want to shut down FET and shut down steel pan. Nothing is further from the truth. Nothing is further from the truth. So we were dealing with noise pollution. If you live anywhere near one of these venues, you will know what it is like night after night, the pounding that goes on. And the Minister here of Culture, Minister Michelle Benjamin, will tell you what is it, $147 million given for steel pan for this carnival coming. In addition to what we are giving to the unsponsored steel pans, in addition. 147 unsponsored steel pans are being funded by the ministry from this government. So when you run to spread mischief and make trouble, like you try to make trouble with this matter with the, well, in Tobago, they blew wash out of Tobago. But Woodside, I mean, that is so dishonest. It is so dishonest when all of that happened under your watch. It happened under your watch. And you went to the parliament. No. So when all of that there, when you should have announced it, you were playing prime minister for what? The one-day prime minister. One-day prime minister. So can we say we will continue to look at the whole issue of noise pollution. We also look to issues relating to health, agriculture, environment, workers' rights, and the protection and empowerment of socially displaced persons. The agenda I'm speaking of today for legislation is not about old talk and rhetoric. We are not, as we say in Trinidad and Tobago, breaks in from the hard work or the long hours in Parliament. We will get the people's work done here, even if we have to stay longer than we planned. So in every area, in every one of the ministries, draft policies have been sent and drafting of the actual legislation is taking place. Out of the Office of the Prime Minister, as I mentioned before, we look forward to partnering with the THA and their teams for autonomy, self-government for Tobago. We will complete this. This has gathered dust on the shelves for over 10 years and more. So it is something that is left unfinished. And I met yesterday with Honorable Chief Secretary Farley and his team, and we are committed to get this done in the shortest possible time. They deserve it, and we will work as hard as we can to make sure that it happens. So those are some of the others. We talked about the home invasion bill. We want to talk about as well in this parliament season, firearms reform. Destruction of firearms is another major initiative. Before, government is strengthening that framework for destruction of firearms and ammunition, as well as storage and record keeping for arms and ammunition in the possession of state agencies, Defense Force, TTPS, and so on. And then the disposal, clear, secure disposal of seized, obsolete, or surrendered weapons. Again, this will help us in the fight against crime. We want to also take a look at the private security industry bill. That objective of that bill is to regulate the private security industry in TNT. That bill, we want to establish the Private Security Service Authority and provide a legal framework to govern and supervise private security firms and personnel, ensuring they meet legal, operational, and ethical standards. Can you give me a time check, please? That would establish procedures and requirements for licensing and operating private security services, bring in mechanisms for inspection and monitoring to ensure compliance with. Okay, thank you. Ministry of Finance, Office of the Attorney General, the Virtual Assets Service Providers Bill. It was passed in the Parliament just in December and has been assented to. This is a very important piece of legislation, and we have been on a blacklist and a grey list and all color lists for the past decade. Because the other side, when they were in government, they put Trinidad and Tobago on that blacklist. And a decade, a whole 10 years, they never were able to get us off the blacklist. We are working on it, and so this Virtual Assets Service Providers Bill, that bill will help us to get off the blacklist. We have a review. There's a review process on our Attorney General in March. So we are putting pieces of legislation. Another one that we have to bring in order to take us off that blacklist and grey list is amendment to the Bail Act. So in our law, it has become part of the practice of the law that persons are entitled to bail even if they commit murder. Which was the case, Achille Charles case. Achille Charles. that you could get bail. But we are looking at some of the things to comply with the CFATF to get off the blacklist, that we have to make some amendments to our Bail Act. Source of funds is a very important thing because, you know, when you get bail, you have to provide collateral, you have to pay for bail, whatever it may be. Where are you getting the monies? So we have to put things in our law, in our Bail Act, to ensure that we comply with the international standards when it comes to source of funds as well. And of course, exceptional circumstances, if I recall correctly, AG. There must be exceptional circumstances to prevent or to give the bail. I think Minister Sturge shared with me earlier today, there is a matter coming up before the courts where the whole determination of what is exceptional circumstances may be determined. And I believe this is before the Court of Appeal. Yes. So that will help us to, in framing our law, what are the exceptional circumstances that would apply in our bail laws. As another piece of legislation, we want to reform the judge-alone trial process. We want to introduce a bill to reform that process to provide for 3 judges to sit in capital cases. This proposed reform is aimed at enhancing accountability and potentially addressing concerns that have been voiced in relation to single-person decision-making in matters of life and death. So whilst that law was passed here in this Parliament, judge alone, we want to propose amendments that will make it a 3-member panel of judges when it is your life at stake, when it's capital offenses for life and death. We are looking at the AJIPA again, proclaimed in 2023. Key criminal justice stakeholders have identified several deficiencies. They include resulting delays, which was one of the problems that very same Act, the AJIPA Act, was supposed to address, but instead has resulted in more delay. Government has conducted an extensive review of all stakeholder feedback with a view to proposing amendments to strengthen the framework and address challenges faced in its implementation. What I intend to do is give you a broad framework here, tell you where our priorities are. Yes, with crime, the fight against crime, safety, security. We also have other pieces of legislation that will have more of a social impact, whilst at the same time dealing with crime and crime fighting. So, for example, we have miscellaneous provisions: alcohol, cannabis, dangerous drugs, gambling, and tobacco bill, where that bill seeks to amend about 7 pieces of legislation, which include Dangerous Drugs Act, Registration of Clubs, Tobacco Control Act, Children Act, Liquor License Act, Gambling and Gaming Act, Cannabis Control Act. All of these amendments to be brought for us to deal with setting age limits for the sale, purchase, possession, or consumption of intoxicating liquor or tobacco, to change that age from 18 to 21. For the sale, purchase, possession, or consumption of cannabis from 18 to 21, and in respect of gambling from 21 to 25. Now, I think the honourable member for San Fernando East will recall that the former Prime Minister, Mr. Manning, was very much against, the late former Prime Minister was very much against gambling. And the research is showing that age is very important at which children, young people get caught up into the gambling and so on. So we've looked at the research, and as I say, we want to change that age. We're also looking at an amendment to the Dangerous Drugs Act, dealing with the use of marijuana. Since the former government decriminalized cannabis in 2019, the T&T Police Service raised enforcement and regulatory challenges that have hindered effective policing of the new laws. Lack of clarity regarding 4 plants per person, lack of guidelines to ensure cultivation only happens in secure private spaces, the need to prohibit cannabis use in public places, and several other key issues have been raised. We are looking again, as I say, for reform with respect to that law. So, cannabis for medicinal purposes, that is something we are actively exploring. And that act will seek to provide control of the handling of cannabis for specific purposes for the establishment of cannabis for specific purposes, establishing an authority, a licensing association for cannabis. We want to look at Constitution Amendment Bill, right to a trial within a reasonable time. It cannot be right that you are locked away and kind of, I see my member for Port of Spain South is smiling. I think you do have clients who fall into this net, and so that you're locked away for years and years and years and years because it takes you 10 years or 15 years to clear your name. By the time you get out of there, you serve out your sentences, your reputation is destroyed and damaged. So it's something we will work and hope that you all will work with us to deal with some of these major issues. Criminal justice reform is something, as I mentioned before, and I'll give details. What I will do, I'll prepare to save the Parliament's time and the limited time I have for a statement. We'll put it all together and table it in the Parliament and also to share it with the public. So these are some of the areas that we are working on. There's a CARICOM arrest warrant bill. This bill will provide for the implementation of the CARICOM arrest warrant treaty. The objective of that treaty was to establish within the community a system of arrest and surrender of requested persons for the purposes of conducting criminal prosecutions or executing custodial sentences. So we can work together as a CARICOM region, which regrettably is no longer a zone of peace. So we can work together to fight the crime in the CARICOM region. There should never ever be another Brent Thomas. My colleagues remind me. Never ever be another Brent Thomas. Never ever be a Brent Thomas. This man was in Barbados, was picked up, put in a police, yes, he was abducted. He was kidnapped, abducted, put in a police vehicle, taken to the airport, using an RSS plane. And up to now, no one could tell us who was responsible for that. So nobody could tell us. I remember when that happened, I wrote to several officials here in the government, in the former government. I wrote to the Prime Minister of Barbados because that's where the man was abducted and picked up. And I am being advised, but investigations are underway, that that could not happen without ministerial intervention. Yes. So it is being investigated. We will get to the bottom of it, and those responsible will have to face justice. We will do that investigation. Several other pieces of legislation, I'll put them all together. So let me just thank you all very much, and thank you for your time. We'll put it together. Madam Deputy, we'll lay it in the Parliament and circulate it, because there's so many other pieces of legislation. So I want to thank my colleagues. They've all worked very, very hard in the area of labor legislation. Labor Minister has Leroy Batiste has put out some of the policy initiatives. They have been very welcome, and we look forward to working with all of you in this Parliament to get the job done. Thank you all very much, and thanks to all my colleagues on this side. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Prime Minister. Member Farima.
Thank you kindly, Madam Deputy Speaker. In keeping with Standing Order 24, Section 4, I would like to ask the Honourable Prime Minister that in your statement you made reference to the fact that there was no breach of international law in the blowing up of the vessels because of the involvement in narco trafficking. Are you prepared to share with this Honourable House and the Parliament a copy of the advice as well as the name of the attorney that gave that advice? Thank you.
Honourable Prime Minister.
Madam Deputy Speaker, the question does not arise. We were dealing with the legislative agenda today, sharing with you. And if you want legal advice, ask your small pin, lawyer have crossed it.
Madam Deputy
Speaker, 48
Honorable Prime Minister, oh gosh. No, you should withdraw that statement.
General, they could come to you to find out the legal advice. Thank you very much.
Yes, so let us move on. Honorable Attorney General.
Madam Deputy Speaker, this afternoon I have the enviable task of laying the report on the Commission of Inquiry into the failure of CL Financial Limited, Colonial Life Insurance Company Trinidad and Tobago Limited, Clico Investment Bank Limited, British American Insurance Company Trinidad Limited, Caribbean Money Market Brokers Limited, and the Hindu Credit Union Cooperative Society Limited. The report has never been laid. I return to that shortly. Madam Speaker, I say that this is an unwelcome task because once again I have been placed between a rock and a hard place. And I've been placed in that position by the truly unconscionable actions of my predecessors over the past decade or so. Now, what transpired over the past 10 years boggles the mind. I believe that it is important for me to refresh the memory of members present and that of the viewing public as to what has led us here today, given that the collapse of Clico took place 17 years ago under PNM administration in 2009. The government spent roughly, I was there when they fell.
That's why he knows everything.
2009. I know where the bodies are buried.
Yes, we got dig it out.
The government spent $28 billion. The government spent $28 billion rescuing the group. $28 billion.
Wow.
To date, however, and I was not there in 2010, just for the record, to date, however, somewhere in the vicinity of about $3 to $4 billion over and above that $28 billion have been spent on matters relating to the collapse of Clico. Now, I say that that money has been spent, Madam Deputy Speaker, because the previous Attorney General, not me, and the Attorney Generals twice removed, not me, were irresponsible enough to have engaged lawyers and accountants over the decades and then to have stopped paying them in some cases since 2022, when I was at the University of the West Indies teaching my students. Not me. Madam Deputy Speaker, I'm not referring to a couple $1,000s here and there. I'm not even referring to some hundreds of thousands of dollars. I am speaking of close to $500 million. I would descend to particulars, spent on a particular firm, Deloitte and Touche, close to $400 million, not hired by me. That is a team that I see that I will have to repeat often this afternoon, and lawyers to support them. Now, they haven't paid Deloitte and Touche since 2022. So it begs the question, what is going on? They've been taking work from Deloitte and Touche since 2022. And then they have the temerity to come to this house to ask me, I want to see what is going to happen with the corruption investigations. They've been freeloading. Freeloading. You run up astronomical amounts of money, run away, asking questions, and then on my first few days inside here, what's going to happen with the corruption investigations? Well, Deloitte and Touche down tools, as they were supposed to do. Now, I'm coming to the sabotage point shortly. Now, it would be one thing if Deloitte and Touche and the persons hired for the Director of Public Prosecutions had managed to charge someone. But you know how many people have been charged? Not one single person. None. $500 million for what? Nothing. Now, those figures that I've given, that 3 to 4 billion, it doesn't include liquidators' expenses. And we know how those go. Madam Deputy Speaker, I've asked myself a number of times a couple of questions. All of this money that has been shelled out, how much of it has been actually recovered? I just said nobody's being charged. What about if they got back 50 cents? That's one question. Secondly, who has been held to account for what is indisputably the biggest and largest case of fraud and financial tragedy in Trinidad and Tobago and possibly the Caribbean? And finally, who has benefited from all of this wanton spending on professional charges? Because, Madam Deputy Speaker, the citizens surely have not benefited. And I heard my friend, I think, Sotovoshi from Trinity Maloney say, not me. But you know why? Because she doesn't play golf. That's the reason why. That's the reason why. Madam Speaker, you know who else hasn't benefited? The citizens of the Republic have not benefited. So it is not only the non-golf players, it is the citizens. I don't play golf either. But the citizens have not benefited. The report that I lay before the Parliament today itself came at a cost of approximately $150 million. That's how much it cost in terms of Sir Anthony Coleman and the attorneys who had been hired. The commission was appointed in 2010. This report is dated the 2nd of June 2016. And I've said before, it has never seen the light of day. Now, why has that happened? Well, before Trincity Maloney says, no, it hasn't been hidden, and I like Trincity Maloney very much. I'm not going to be attacking Trincity Maloney. Trincity Maloney does not know because she was not in the inner circle and she was not on the greens, the golf course. Okay? So, why has it not seen the light of day? Well, I investigated that matter. There was, first of all, the report was done on a typewriter by Anthony Coleman. So, it never went online. There was no electronic copy. And then Sir Anthony Coleman died. And perhaps some persons might have thought there was an opportunity in there. But these reports go from the author to Her Excellency the President. I called the President. I know that we are not supposed to use the President's name inside here. But I withdraw that. There was no copy of this report in the offices of the President of the Republic. That's one copy. Sir Anthony Coleman is dead. There was no copy of the report in the offices of a particular man with a particular hairstyle. It's bald in nature, and he lives somewhere in Western Trinidad, accustomed to calling African males dogs. I fell into that category. None in his office. None in his office, and I hesitated to check to see if there were any at his home. None in his office. None in the office of the Attorney General. The report could not be found for months. The permanent secretary to the Ministry of the Attorney General couldn't find it. The permanent secretary to the office of the Prime Minister could not find it. No copies anywhere.
But you were persistent.
I was persistent. And eventually, I managed to get my hands on the report, and the report is before us today. I apologize for the markings on the report, but those markings are testament to where I might have received the report from. That individual might have marked the report. And the markings all are in a place which repays reading. It is before us, so we can see it. Now, the report itself now we're on the point about the disappearance of the report. But there was something else that was strange about this whole thing. You see, if the member for Cypria happens to have a burglary at her house, 4 or 5 police officers would be assigned to investigate the burglary. If a television set is lost or stolen, 4 or 5 officers will investigate the theft of the television set. And the same for the Honorable Minister of Finance, Minister Tanku. But do you know what? This report, which I've said, chronicles the largest financial fraud in the history of this country. Do you know how many people were investigating this matter? How many police officers? 5 people investigating the theft of a TV or a Converse shoe. But how many people are investigating this report? No more police officers than 3, and in some cases, 1.
What?
And on very few occasions, none. Now, the report comes with a number of documents. It comes with tens of millions of emails, financial accounting records, forensic analysis, sufficient to prove numerous complex cross-border transactions, 6,414 pieces of electronic evidence, 1,650 boxes of hard copy boxes. Well, God alone knows what's in those boxes. Now, but who's checking on this? One police officer? It is impossible. So I want colleagues to know that something took place in the investigation of this matter. Now you might ask, what is that thing? Well, Madam Deputy Speaker, it's come to my attention that there was a particular gentleman in, not the Attorney General immediately before me, my good friend from Trinity Maloney, or the one before her, but perhaps the one before him, I'm not sure. But the one several times removed. They had quite a few. That gentleman sat on the board of one of the entities that Mr. Coleman had quite a lot to say in this report. And I mean, what he says is that, I don't want to read it, but
Yes, put it in the report. Put it in the report. That's it.
okay, my colleagues are asking.
Put it on there. Yes.
I bow to pressure at times. So that I didn't know that I would be asked that, but I am a man who normally prepares. So I have the quote,
Yes.
verbatim for us. In section 5 of the report, under the heading recommendations, and this deals with Clico Investment Bank. I haven't mentioned any names.
Paris.
Section Roman V18 states, as regards Clico Investment Bank, conspiring during the period from 1 January 2002 to 30th March 2009, together with the principal officers and members from time to time of the board of directors and or the managers of so-and-so, in particular one Lawrence Dupree, now deceased, and Richard Trotman, referred collectively to as the co-conspirators. Now that's a serious term there. Because we all know that, I mean, even my friend, my former student, would understand what a conspiracy is. It's an agreement between two persons to do that which is unlawful. Now, and they go on to defraud depositors from time to time in CIB by agreeing, this not my word, dishonestly to put at risk the value and recoverability of the assets available to meet liabilities to those depositors. Well, then he's saying, so he doesn't have the power to charge, but he's saying, call the police. Now he goes on, this is Mr. Coleman. He goes on to talk about a Ponzi scheme and the like. But the fact is, Madam Deputy Speaker, that the task that has now fallen to me is to decide on a way forward this afternoon at this fork in the road, whether to continue this decades-long joke of an investigation, because that is what it was. Spending money on lawyers, billions of dollars on lawyers, and not having people check boxes or putting one police officer to watch a box. What are you doing there?
Watching a box.
Watching a box. Because the lawyers will say, I need X or Y or Z. The lawyers are not police officers. The lawyers say, I need X or Y or Z. You have one police officer, sometimes three, less than investigating the theft of Minister Tanku's TV. Nothing happens. So this is a joke of an investigation. What do I do? Well, as guardian of the public interest and having consulted with the Honorable Prime Minister, I have to say that we are not able to continue to spend hard resources, government resources, and we are not able to authorize and to allow for the spending on professional services to persons who are sometimes golfers, but always very wealthy, homes in various parts of the world, in the United Kingdom, in Barbados. Some of us live next door to the Governor General of Barbados. We are not able to continue to spend money on that. So that, now I have to be careful. We are also not able to bring an end to any criminal investigation. That is a matter which is entirely within the remit of the Director of Public Prosecutions. I can, however,